Hi, my name is Brianna David, and after reading the book Urban Science Education for the Hip Hop Generation, the theme that really spoke to me was centered around student-centered learning. So the theme that I chose was students don't have enough involvement with their own learning. They must be given freedom to take learning into their own hands and express their creativity. I find this particularly important because a lot of students have trouble learning the way one particular teacher will teach them because they are forced into one way of learning. And since we all have different strategies for learning, it seems only fair that students should be able to take that learning into their own hands and manipulate it to a way that makes sense to them, especially with a topic like science that tends to be more difficult for students. One article I found was titled Relations Among Grade 4 Students' Perceptions of Autonomy, Engagement in Science, and Reading Motivation. Was really centered around autonomy, which is the sense of freedom, control, and independence, and in this case is applied to education. And what the article discussed was how students that learn in student-centered learning environments are more motivated to learn. They have a higher perceived competence in the knowledge that they're learning, and they also seem to have more positive feelings towards school. And the results also showed that the students were more engaged cognitively in their learning, behaviorally, and emotionally, which is a lot to say for students learning science in grade 4. Another article I found was titled Examining Teachers' Instructional Moves Aimed at Developing Students' Ideas and Questions in Learner-Centered Science Classrooms. The whole point of this article was showing that teachers have difficulty teaching scientific discourse, and students have difficulty learning it. So there's this teacher-student disconnect, and a disconnect with the material as well. So throughout this article, they had 3 different teachers using 3 different strategies, and they all used learner-centered environments, and had students ask many questions and foster those questions with supporting answers. And so instead of the teachers trying to force scientific discourse on them, the students sort of manipulate and learn it themselves, which just goes to show that student-centered learning environments are really useful and effective. A third article I found was really unique. It was titled Shifting to a Student-Centered Science Classroom, an exploration of teacher and student changes in perceptions and practices. And in this article, the students were unfamiliar with student-centered learning. They'd never been in an environment like that, and the teacher was new to the profession, so she hadn't really had any experience with it either. And through the process, what they figured out was that though the students are meant to take responsibility for the things they learn, the teacher can't just put all of the effort on the students. They must also create some amount of structure for the students to follow, because as learners, we don't know everything. So I thought this article was really useful in the theme that I chose because it really goes to show that the students learned really well, even knowing that they needed structure, because through the article it mentions that the students knew they were apprehensive about the process, but they knew they needed some amount of structure, and once they got it, they learned. Finally, this article was titled Teachers' Evaluation of Student-Centered Learning Environments. And in this article, the students collected and understood information in ways that students from non-student-centered learning environments did. So what they did in this article was they evaluated student-centered learning environments using 4 factors, and the teachers that participated in this study ranked 4 of these factors in order from what they felt most greatly affected students. And so the order listed psychosocial, time, infrastructure, and place. Those are in the proper order the teachers ranked them in. And basically, the article concluded by saying that teachers should make time for student-centered learning in their classrooms, whether it's enforcing extracurricular activities, having activities throughout the class, whatever the case may be. So that was my little exploration through urban science education for the hip-hop generation. I hope this theme was useful, and I hope you found this video interesting.